back on the Super Centex Podcast. I'm wearing my pink for October. Wrote a little bit about the Crawford pink out matches yesterday, but yeah, I support killing cancer.
I've got pink tape on my shoes and ankles. You just can't see it.
It's Chad, Michael, and Bryce once again. Gentlemen, y'all doing okay today?
Doing wonderful. How are you doing, Chad?
Yeah, good. I'm getting ready to go to Weatherford to see my nephew play quarterback for the Acton junior high 7th grade team. I guess they're the Pirates. I don't know if usually the middle schools go with the high school's mascot. Like River Valley is the Panthers, right? Even though Midway is also the Panthers.
Yes. Growing up, for when I was a kid, it was the diminutive of something. But
how when you grew up in Brenham, how can you be the diminutive of Cubs?
Your
high school mascot was a baby.
I've told this story before, but we were the Kittens, the Brenham Kittens, and the girls' teams were the Kittenettes.
Wow.
Yes, you can't get a lot more sissy than that. All right.
That's how you make junior high teams tough. That's how you toughen them. Yeah. It's like a boy named Sue.
Can you imagine the opposing pep rally? Let's go out tomorrow night and crush the Kittens.
And we did have pep rallies in junior high, as I remember it.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
we did too. The spirit stick was a big thing.
We're off to a really hot start.
Hot start.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, I'm calling this the very best edition of the Super Centex Podcast because I'm gonna get your thoughts on several bests, starting with best games of this week. So let's start with, this upcoming week 7 schedule. By the time we reach the After Dark podcast on Friday night, when you look back in hindsight, what do you think will end up being the best game of the week and why?
As I was prepping for this, I was tempted to make a joke about a game. We have a game in our area between a 1-5 versus an 0-6 team, but I won't even say the team's names and won't be mean and make that joke. So anyway, what do you think, Michael?
You're turning over a new leaf of kindness.
Yeah,
I am really trying hard.
The one that this is one I had tried to kind of gatekeep from y'all for several weeks now, and it's actually the game I will be at. Gatesville at la-vega. Start of District 12 4A Division II play this week. Most of those teams in that district are coming off of an off week. Only team that played last week was Lorena. And this game, these are the two teams through non-district play that I would say are, the hottest, maybe the most dominant so far. And la-vega has 2 losses, but we all know that schedule they played is unbelievable. I don't think losses to top-ranked Salina in 4A D1 and number 3 or number 2 Stephenville in that same classification.
Right.
They're number 1 and 2. That's the 2 games they lost.
Both those losses on the road, correct? I know
Stephenville. Technically the Salina was a neutral site. It was scheduled as a road game, but anyway, so yeah, no one's overlooking la-vega going into this district play. Gatesville 5-0, playing really well, including a really dominant road win against Glenrose, which is aging quite well. I don't know if y'all saw, they only lost to Alvarado by 55-50. Maybe there's more context to that than we know. But anyway, both of these teams are rolling. Is there it's so early. I don't want to get too far ahead. Could this game determine a district champion? I don't know. Maybe not. It's going to be fun. It's going to be at Willie Williams Stadium. I'm really looking forward to it.
What I want to know is, are you going to have the gumption now as we sit here, and it's still time to change it. As we sit here, Bryce and I have both picked la-vega. Are you going to have the gumption to pick Gatesville and then walk into Willie Williams Stadium to cover it?
I'm not sure.
That's a tough pick.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I haven't made my picks so far at this point because I don't know. Especially for a game like that, I think I'll probably lean la-vega. Just because similar to how I felt about Chilton last week, they haven't necessarily given me a reason to pick against them. But you could say the same thing about Gatesville. That's a really tough one to me. I think la-vega being at home
And as battle tested as they are, I
yeah,
just feel like
yeah.
they're not gonna flinch with Gatesville
Yes.
coming to
But
town.
again, I think it's going to be really interesting to see in this matchup, like, can these Pirates who have, as we know, they're kind of more air raid this year. They're not just flinging it all the time, but they've found more success through the air. Are they going to be able to, go at this Gatesville defense that is still tough as ever? They've got Amos Phillips back there, running around. Like, there's a lot of interesting matchups in this game and I think we always talk about we're going to learn about, these teams. I think we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams in terms of how they can stack up in this district after this game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the 12-4A slate is good all the way around. I think China Spring Connolly, Gatesville, la-vega, Lorena Robinson. That Lorena Robinson's kind of a rivalry game in our area. Probably one of the hottest rivalries in our area. And then I think you go to District 5-3A Division 1, where West is at Maypearl, Groesbeck is at Mejia, and then, the big one, Grandview at Whitney. And I went ahead and picked Whitney in that one. I think Grandview's strength of schedule is a little misleading. They beat Malakoff, but Malakoff's sitting there at 2-3, through the first half of the season. So I think they beat Glen Rose, but then Glen Rose
They did.
I think maybe still be looking for their first W. So Whitney has had trouble stopping people. So that could be big time because Grandview is one of the most prolific offenses between Grandview. It's almost like Grandview should. I don't feel like in fact, they've sent us nominations for stuff before, haven't they? Right? They're just on the outer fringe of our area, and but anyway, I think that Grandview Whitney's going to be one we're talking about.
Well, so is this podcast sponsored by Waffle House? Like, are you going to pick a game here? Give me your best game.
I'm just telling you. Oh, the best game of the week. I thought we were talking about ones that we would be talking about on After Dark. That's kind of what I was looking for. I was looking for
I want your best one.
Look at that result over there because I got another one. The Groesbeck Mejia game is pretty interesting because I think, and I've said for a while, Mejia's football program, and I have no data. I haven't looked up any research on this, but they just feel like they're the king of going 3-7 and making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so they haven't won a game yet this year, but they don't count out the Black Cats.
I can find his name. It seems like after week 2 or 3, they've found they've gone to a different quarterback, and it's made a big difference. It was before that game against Cameron Yo where y'all almost got that game on me. They have started to play a lot better. They're still really young, but yeah, I think Mejia's figuring some things out. What do you think, Bryce?
But as far as the game we're going to be talking about, I think the Bosqueville Valley Mills game is probably the result that we're all the most curious about. I had that one
teed up because I thought Michael would talk about Gatesville la-vega.
That's why you didn't want me being Waffle House because I was taking up all the.
No, hang on. I only had the Bosqueville Valley Mills game teed up because I thought you would go with Midway and Temple.
You thought I was going to go with Midway Temple,
but
that's obvious, That's kind of the obvious.
I will say the Bosqueville Valley Mills game for me was the hardest game of the week to pick, partially just because both of them coming off lopsided losses. I think the Axtell loss for Valley Mills a little more forgivable, if than the loss to Dawson. That was an eye-opener. Like, Bosqueville obviously been really playing well, and that was kind of a step back to a Dawson team that had struggled, had lost 4 in a row coming into that game, hadn't really scored any points since week 1 against Hubbard. So that one was a weird outcome. So that's why, for me, the Bosqueville Valley Mills game was the hardest to pick and maybe the most interesting. But I mean, for the sake of just like the talent on the field, that Midway Temple game is going to be a banger.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good one.
Should be fun. All right. So what's the single best play that you've seen this season?
Well, a few Thursdays ago, I was sitting at home hanging out on Thursday night. I don't know what the particulars were, but I just thought, heck,
It was
I'm
like a
gonna
Bills
go
game.
up and
It
watch
was a
that.
Bills
Huh?
game, yeah. I think it was a Bills game. I don't know who they were playing,
Oh
but
yeah, it was the Bills and Dolphins, and
that's
it
right.
got to be halftime. And anyway, I thought, I'm gonna go watch a little live football for a little while. And I go up to Waco ISD Stadium for the University Shoemaker game, and it was like really dull game at halftime. And of course, Michael was up there covering for us. Madison Palumbo from KCEN was up there uh, covering the game for them. And I get up there and I start chattering, and the game starts picking up and going back and forth. That kickoff return for a touchdown one way, almost a kickoff return for a touchdown the other way. And then Shoemaker throws it up for this kid, Jamal Polite, and he reaches up and grabs one and pulls it in for a touchdown. And I let out a yelp, and when I had to tell Madison over there, I was like, look, that was a good play because I'm not prone to, uh, that kind of outburst in the press box. So that was a great play. Maybe that's out of the area. The best Central Super Centex player, candidate player I've seen. When Tank Scott just absolutely earned his nickname for a second half touchdown against Mart. He got hit at the line of scrimmage and fought through it. He got hit past the line of scrimmage. Guys tried to drag him down, and they just couldn't drag him down, and he kept going. And before you know it, he'd scored on a 39-yard touchdown. So
yeah.
So I
and
had that, yeah.
And here I am, Waffle House again. But Bryce McCurdy dropped one in a bucket to Dylan Medlock, and the Robinsons went over Glen Rose. It kind of got them going in that comeback win.
Nice.
Those are all good ones. I had that Jamal Polite one on my list too, because I had a few, and I'm not going to run through all of these, but there's at least two here that really jump off the page. When I first saw Chilton 2 weeks ago beat Goldthwaite 14-0 after a scoreless first half. I believe this was the touchdown that got them no, it was the second touchdown. Nico Thomas Jr., their new quarterback, he had scored a touchdown on a rushing touchdown the first time to get them a 7-0 lead, but his second touchdown of the night and the one that gave them their 14-point cushion. I've talked about it on the podcast before and obviously written about it. It was a bad snap. He kind of lost the ball and it was like rolling to his left. He scoops it up real quick. There's someone kind of flying at him off the edge, and he just totally jukes the kid out. Made like a nice cut inside or outside, I can't remember, and then he just burst down the left sideline and was gone. And then there were two other guys behind him who like clashed into each other and fell. Rod got that good photo of there's like all this like carnage in the back, and Nico's just taken off down the left sideline. I think it was like a 40-yard touchdown, I think, but he ended up running upwards of 60 yards on the play because of the bad snap.
It's a
That
good
was
thing
a
he
good
didn't
one.
fall down on the ground to pick up the scoop ball like gosh
Well,
dang.
and I asked him. I asked him. Yeah, well, correct. That was a crazy play. But I actually talked to Nico about that, and I was just like, what was going through your mind? And he was like, he didn't necessarily say it like this. I'm paraphrasing, but what he was saying is like a lot of kids will just jump on the ball, out of fear that someone else isn't getting got on. He's like, I want to make a play. Like I want to turn nothing into something. That was his mindset. And
that's high risk, high reward.
it is because if there are times where that can bite you, but
you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them in this game of football. Because I tell you can make a play like that. You can also force a play in the red zone and throw a pick at the goal line, which the Chargers did and the Chiefs did, and it cost them W's on Sunday.
Chad's about to break out in some Kenny Rogers here pretty soon.
Real quick, Bryce, I did want to mention just one other play that just it still is ringing through my head to this day. University playing at China Spring. Devontre Kirkland, who is unfortunately now out for the year, as we know, with a lower leg injury. He had multiple plays in that game that just made me go like, whoa. But one play in particular, I've shown Bryce the video. It's on social media. You can find it. They'll play him in a lot, or they would play him in a lot of different spots. He can play safety on the back end. He can come up into the box. This play, he blitzed off the edge and just absolutely crushed China Spring backup quarterback Bryson Collard. It was a strip sack that somebody else recovered and took for a touchdown. I think it was Kylan Estelle took it for a touchdown. That was a play also that is just like, holy smokes.
Yeah. So first of all, send you said you can find that one on social media. Send that link to Win Emmons. Maybe he can drop it in there as you're talking about it. But I'll also mention two, but I'm going to mention two by the same guy. Obviously, I've seen Midway a lot, but I agree with you guys who both said that, like, we're pretty good about staying reserved, but when a play makes you like audibly react, Chad said he yelped, I would say one of the ones that Lathan Wisington made where I definitely was like, what? Like you got to be kidding. Like was I think it was Leander Rouse game. If it wasn't, it was the game before that against Cedar Ridge, but I'm pretty sure it was Rouse. It was the one where I told y'all about it. They kicked it over the kick returners' heads, and the ball just stopped. It just stopped on the 1 yard line, and instead of rolling into the end zone, and Lathan had the presence of mind to turn around and go, "Oh crap," and went and picked it up, and here all the people are now converging on him, and he, jump cuts this way and that way, and then takes it 99 yards for a friggin' kick return touchdown. That was unreal. And then the other one was last week against Shoemaker. So who did you mention from Channel 6, Chad?
Madison Palumbo.
Yeah, Madison was actually briefly in the press box with me and a Colleen reporter. And she was there during this play. And I was sitting there going, this is crazy. This is crazy. Like, I was just yelling because it was the play where Wisington broke it for 44 yards. He got dragged down at like the 5 yard line or whatever, but he's just spinning and bouncing, and like guys are just flying off of him. And last night, I don't know if y'all watched the Jaguars Chiefs game. Trevor Lawrence falls down. Looks like it's going to be a sack. He gets up. He sort of looks like a big gangly kindergartner, and he runs into the end zone for a touchdown. And Troy Aikman, in the most sacrilegious comment ever, said something like, "Oh my gosh, he looked like Earl Campbell." And I was just like, shut up, Troy Aikman, because he did not look like Earl Campbell. But Lathan Wisington on that run against Shoemaker, he looked like Earl Campbell.
Troy Aikman is kind of like Joe Theismann used to be. Great quarterback, very dear to the hearts of the fans of his team. Not my favorite broadcaster.
No, he's pretty vanilla. So two great ones from Lathan. Chad will get a chance to see him this week when Midway plays Temple. So years ago, Chad can remember this, we used to publish with our high school notebook, Michael, this little box, 5 teams we called like the Super Centex Power Poll or Power Rankings. It was essentially the pound for pound rankings of the best teams in Central Texas. For instance, we know that any year, Mart's not going to step up and beat Midway. 2A, 6A, those are different animals. But a lot of years, Mart was the best pound for pound team in the area. So that's my question to you guys. Who's that number one team in Central Texas this year? Basically, who has the best shot to win state in our area? You can include 6-man teams too.
Here's the thing: this is like a scratcher, right? Like you get a scratcher and you scratch off three things. What I want to know is, are we all going to scratch off the same team?
Go for it.
You and me probably have the same team in mind, but I have 2 in mind in case you steal one, Chad.
I mean, the Bremond Tigers is.
Yeah, I think Bremond's the first team that pops to mind.
Well, and I was going to say obviously they're good, like we know that, but I was going to say what gives them maybe the edge over some of the other teams in our areas is they were in the state semifinals last year, and most of those guys are back, so they know not only how to get to that stage. Maybe, obviously needing one more win to get there officially, but those guys know how to play deep into November, December.
Yep.
Well, when they inevitably play deep into December. I guess we're gonna have to figure out: are we covering them, or is the Eagle covering them? Like, I think we should,
Let's just all
elbow
go.
the Eagle out of our way.
Let's just all go.
Let's
Hey,
just
I
all
mean,
go.
if we've got one team left between the two, we both need content.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
But I don't know. I feel like this is a year when we're going to have like Fremont be like carrying the torch past like the second week of December.
Yeah.
And I can say that without insulting any one team in particular, because I'm saying that about everybody but Fremont.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, I get that. Like, is there another state contender out there? That's the other question, I guess.
I think so.
I think so too. But
who's your other contender?
Michael? I was gonna bring up Fairfield. We talked about Fairfield. Now listen, look, like, we're gonna learn more about them through district play. They smoked everyone in non-district play. I mean, just absolutely smoked them. I don't think they've really been threatened yet. So what will that team look like when some adversity hits? That's probably the only thing left that we still need to know about Fairfield. They're really good, guys. Like, I have seen them in person. We can look at the numbers. They're averaging over 50 points a game. Most of their starters aren't playing the full length of the games. I actually talked to them today a little bit, and it's like, they have some really competitive kids who have now been in some of these, playoff moments where they're hungry and they just want to win. And it's kind of hard right now through this early part of the schedule where they're having to kind of have this big picture mindset of like, look, like, we are really, really good and we're killing teams right now, but like, we need to also protect ourselves a little bit. We can't just go play 4-quarter games, score 100 points in September and October when the games certainly matter, but those guys have really big goals in mind and they're going to want to protect those guys moving forward.
Well, and here's the thing with them. They're in the same region as Franklin, in the same district as Palestine Westwood.
Yes.
And maybe Columbus, they might be in the region as well. So that's going to make that a tough task for them.
But I do like their chances.
Yeah, I'll mention a couple in the 6-man ranks. One UIL, one private school, and that would be the UIL one would clearly be Aquila.
I agree.
The Cougars. So they have outscored their opponents, and Michael wrote about them last week, but they've outscored their opponents now 388 to 66 on the year. They have 45 in every game. Now, they haven't played one of those, big time state teams yet. So that'll be the challenge. And, we'll see what happens when they find themselves in a close game. But they're rolling along really well, and TC Hennig for them is kind of their big-time playmaker, the sophomore.
I will say the only thing that I feel like probably the biggest roadblock, whatever you want to say, is in the way of them is Gordon. I mean, that the fact that you have to play against Gordon, who we know is just generational with their talent, that's really all else you can really say about, like,
no, that's absolutely
would they win a state
right.
championship or
that's
not.
Absolutely right. And then the other one I'll mention from their particular TAPS division would be Valor. They're clicking along pretty well too, and pretty loaded. I mean, they basically had their whole team come back.
Yes.
And I mean, Michael and I do the stats. I sent Michael, Chad, a couple of like Copperell guys this week for like potential 6-man player of the week. But he went with a Valor kid, and it was completely understandable.
Oh yeah,
because the kid threw for 500 and something yards and 8 touchdowns, or nine
touchdowns, which is just like, what in the world?
Bear Griesemer is that kid. Yeah, and both them and Texas win, incidentally. Both of whom have really good teams. The passing numbers are just off the charts. Like, they don't run the ball hardly at all. They just
I haven't seen that from a 6-man team.
Yeah, they just sling it around.
The sport. Yeah,
they sling it around all the time. All right, let's move on to my last best. So Chad got a request when he was out in Mart.
No, this was actually Michael was at Mart.
My bad. It was Michael.
Yeah.
But
it was Chad's friend.
Kevin Schaefer, who I go way back to at least middle school with. We were in the same French horn class in 6th grade, and see him from time to time. in the football season.
Really nice guy.
So he made a mention to Michael then about we should have this entire podcast where we break down the best games we've ever seen. So we'll try to tackle it in one question.
That would be like, I think that might be like a bespoke podcast just for Kevin, right? I'm not sure. He's being really
and maybe
nice.
We'll try that later, but I'm just going to tell you right now we got about 9 minutes left. So,
in our Zoom meeting,
yeah, give me your best high school game. I'll start with you, Chad. Well, you and I have seen a lot of them.
Well, I'm not going to miss this opportunity to promote my book, The Republic of Football.
Nice.
Published in 2016. And because one of my I create a lifelong fan in Coach Robert Murphy because I did a chapter on his 2004 Crawford Pirates team, and he was my best promoter for this book, has been the best promoter for my book. But the only team in the book,
it's funny that you're giving him a shout out on a podcast that he'll never listen to, but go on.
True. He's not a big fan of the internet. But there's 42 chapters in the book. The only team that I wrote about that I actually watched live was the Crawford Pirates in 2004. And they played Cisco over at Tarleton State that year at Thanksgiving weekend. And my dad actually went with me to the game because I was at my parents' house in Granbury at the time. And so my dad goes over to the game with me, and we just happened to be sitting in the press box with like Dallas Morning News writer and the Cisco coach's dad, right? So there's like, picture it, Dallas Morning News, me, my dad, Cisco coach's dad, right? And Cisco has a 17-3 lead in the fourth quarter. They're kind of salting the thing away. This is two good old smash mouth, 2A football programs. And Cisco, I guess, was thinking they were going to put the game away because they faked a punt on fourth down in Crawford territory, I think. And they threw a pass, and Derek Dumas, I believe, for Crawford, picked it off, ran it back for a touchdown, and that got the ball rolling on a comeback. Crawford ends up winning the game 27-24. And but at the moment of that play, when they faked that punt and threw that interception, the Dallas Morning News reporter, whose name I think I remember, but I won't mention it, he was saying, "Oh, that was such a dumb call. What a bad call." And this guy had kind of been chirping the whole game. Well, that Cisco coach's dad stands up, and he was an old former coach, by the way. I could probably find his name too. But anyway, he stands up, and he just turns around, and he's just shaking, and he's looking at the guy, and he goes, "I'm about to hurt you." And then he gets up and turns around and just walks out. He took a walk. Take a walk, coach.
That's a good one.
Wow.
Bryce, I will go quickly.
And Murphy always said that was the game that you probably should have lost that you end up winning. And there's you got to beat a team you probably shouldn't be able to beat. You got to win a game you probably shouldn't have won in order to win a state championship.
Yeah.
Nice.
Bryce, I will go real quick. I have not seen deep postseason games quite like y'all have, but the two games that jump to mind: 2022 University beating Leander Rouse to snap a 13-year playoff drought at Waco ISD Stadium. It made Chad's list of the best 25 games in the stadium's history. That was pretty cool. That was my, introduction to London Smith and the South Waco community, so that was a lot of fun. The other game I'll mention, it was down in Cedar Park in 2023. It was a 1-point win for Falls City over Bremond in a regional final, I think it was. Yeah, or a regional semifinal. And crazy game, and ended up coming down to a missed extra point that, as the Beavers held on. And, unfortunately for the Beavers in that sense, it was basically like that game that basically served as who was going to go lose to Chilton because DeCorian Evans was just unbelievable that year. So that's what I got.
I'm going to mention 4, but I'm going to run through 3 of them real quick. Calvert Sanderson for the 2002 six-man state title. I went all the way out to, and Chad knows a little bit of that story. I went around my elbow to get to my butt to get to this game out in San Angelo. But Calvert came back in the second half of the state championship game after trailing and looking like they were going to get 45 and ended up winning the game. That one was incredible. One that was on Chad's list, our list of the top 25 at Waco ISD, was that triple overtime game between Waco High, A&M Consolidated. I had visions of this Robert Johnson pass where he's rolling left, throwing across his body to the right, and zipping it to the guy at like the 2-yard line. And that game stands out. I will never, for a lot of reasons, forget the China Spring la-vega game in 2007. Dustin Eskew reaching out at the end for the touchdown. That was an incredible game. But the
in a
one
couple
I'll
of years, we
mention,
need to do the 20th anniversary of that game.
yeah, and maybe we
Tell the
do
whole
need it.
story.
Maybe we do need a whole
bloody story.
Yeah, but the one I'll mention with a little more detail is the one I dubbed the Miracle at Moody. Axtell versus Thorndale in the playoffs. I want to say by district playoffs. It was played in Moody, and Axtell had. I could not find the game story. If I really research it, I'm sure I could, but I found some other stuff I wrote about it. They had this quarterback. Mike Cadell was the coach at the time. They had this quarterback named Kevin Neal, and I described him as a human popcorn kernel. And he was just always bouncing around. Thorndale goes up 25 zip at halftime. It looks like just a nothing game. And Axtell comes charging back, Kevin Neal making plays all over the place in the second half. And one of the reasons I remember this game, because it literally came down to the last play of the game, and he's bouncing around. I also described him as, something like Fran Tarkenton, and going way back into football there. But Tarkenton always was like running here, running there, just scrambling all over the field. And that's what that play was. It was kind of like that Johnny Manziel play, run here, run there. Finally, he launches it into the end zone. Axtell kid catches it for the touchdown, and Axtell wins 27-25. And like I said, I called it the Miracle at Moody. And I think that name kind of stuck. They still talk about that game out in Axtell, but that one was incredible. And so I always have like good vibes from the Moody press box because I'll never forget that game. I haven't covered a lot of games out in Moody, but that one certainly stands out. So pretty good. All right, Chad, we'll get to see the Midway Panthers this week.
Yeah, thanks to Scott Drew for scheduling exhibition basketball on a
I was
going
to let y'all see one anyway, at least. But yes, it's a good timing. Good timing. That should be a good game, Midway Temple.
Yep.
And Michael, as you mentioned, you've got the big Gatesville la-vega game.
Very, very excited about that one. We'll see how it goes.
Yep. But if I tell you what, if Gatesville's still undefeated next week, they will also find themselves in the state rankings.
And from there, watch out.
Yeah, no kidding. As Chad referenced, I will be covering some basketball. Baylor basketball plays Grand Canyon in the Drew Bowl, Scott versus Bryce.
Oh yeah.
But then I will make my way over to the Midway Temple game and watch some of that because that'll be fun.
And it seemed like we have a pretty good freelance pool this week too, right, Bryce? Like we're going to have some other games.
Yeah, we'll be at China Spring and Conley. We'll be at Lorena Robinson. So some good games there for sure. Yep.
All right.
So we'll see y'all at the games. Thanks.
See you Friday night. All right.
You guys.
All right.